The Georgia haters aren't going to like this, but for the fourth season in a row, the SEC is going to run through Athens, Georgia. They are the top program in the SEC, and maybe this fall, someone will knock them off. But for now, they're still the champs, and I think we have to go into the 2025 season with Georgia still being the team to beat in the SEC. And we're going to talk about which programs might pass Georgia and kind of carry that mantle. But once again, the Dogs are on top in the conference. Going into the 2022 season, Georgia was coming off that national championship. They were the team to beat. They were obviously the team to beat in 2023 as well after that undefeated season in 2022. Now, last year, you could say that Alabama was the team to beat in the SEC after winning the conference in 2023. But without Nick Saban, I don't think you could really make that case. It was Georgia. And of course, they proved everyone right, winning another SEC crown. What they've done in the conference over the last 5 years, it really triggers a lot of other SEC fan bases because number one, they don't want to accept that Georgia's still on top. And number two, there's that Georgia fatigue going around the conference. And I think a lot of fans, whether they're Auburn, Tennessee, Florida, South Carolina, it doesn't matter, right? They are tired of seeing Georgia doing this well, especially in the conference. And I think at some point, you're going to have a lot of those fans wishing that Texas would pass Georgia or even Alabama again passing Georgia. But the fatigue is real. And if you're a Georgia fan, you have to love that, right? That's what you want. You want everyone hating on the Dogs. You want everyone tired of Georgia's continued success in the SEC. But 2025 could be different. This is a very new Georgia team than what we've seen last year, right? New quarterback, new offensive lineman. There's question marks, at running back, some at wide receiver, right? You're going to see new faces there. And defensively, they have to replace the best linebacker in college football, one of the best safeties in college football, an elite defensive lineman, and several other key veteran defenders. So this Georgia team is going to look a lot different. And that is going to open up the door for some of these other programs. Now, I still think that last year, if you were Tennessee, Auburn, Florida, that was the year you needed to beat Georgia. I mean, they lost 3 games. That was the worst Georgia team we've seen since probably 2020, maybe even before that. And they still found a way to win the conference, which is obviously a big, big deal. Now, they didn't achieve their ultimate goal, but I'm telling you right now, there are several other fan bases who would give their left or right arm to see their team win an SEC championship. And at Georgia, it's, becoming common, right? It's expected now to not only, at least play for an SEC championship, right? It's become the norm, right? Because that is where the program is right now. But if you're Texas, this needs to be the year. We talked all offseason last year that it was Ohio State's year. Ohio State had to get it done in 2024, and they did. They, rose to the occasion. They won the national title. 2025, this is the year Texas really needs to get it done. They've got Arch Manning, or, the great Arch Manning, right? Everyone's excited to see him. They've got weapons all over the place. They've got a lot of really good players on defense. They've got the #1 recruiting class. This needs to be the year that Texas gets it done. But in order for them to do that, they've got to get past Georgia, right? Whether it's in Athens or in the SEC championship game eventually, they got to get past the Dogs, right? And you could say that for everyone else. I think Texas is probably the #2 program in the SEC right now. Georgia, obviously, #1, right? Then Texas. And then, you might have to start putting Tennessee right there. Year 3 with Nico. And listen, Tennessee fans get real triggered about the Dogs and their success because, they can't even make it a 1-score game against Georgia. Georgia's treating Tennessee like they're Vanderbilt or, whoever. Kentucky's even giving Georgia a better battle than Tennessee has over the last several years. But Tennessee should have a pretty good team. They continue to bring in talent. They're recruiting well. They've got a quarterback who has the potential to be elite. We haven't seen that out of him yet, but year 3 could be that year. This is the year they need to beat Georgia. It's up in Knoxville. It's a place where Georgia really has had no problem going up there and playing well and, winning by double digits. But this is the year Tennessee really needs to get over that Georgia hump. They've got a Georgia problem right now, no doubt about it. This might be the year that they really need to get past Georgia. Alabama. Right, I know Alabama took a big step backwards last year. But they still have a lot of good players. I think Ty Simpson might be that quarterback. He's really good. Ryan Williams obviously back. They're loaded with talent, right? They always will be. And maybe it took them 1 year. Maybe this is the second kind of rebuilding year before they're really good next year, because they're going to be back and they are going to compete for SEC championships. They're not going away for very long. They missed the playoff last year, but they'll be back, and I expect them to make the playoffs next year. They've got to play the Dogs in Athens, and, they got to get past Georgia, right? It may sound crazy because Georgia at one point did have a big Alabama problem, and a lot of people still think that they do. But at the end of the day, still got to get past Georgia if you're Alabama, and they've got an opportunity to do that. If they go into Athens and win, that would be a really, really solid win for them, right? The Georgia game last year was Alabama's Super Bowl. They came out and they played excellent in the first half. They had all those plays designed that no one had seen before. I mean, that game was circled, and I think they're circling it again this year. So if Alabama wants to have a special season, they probably need to beat Georgia in Athens, and maybe twice in the SEC championship game. But at the end of the day, Georgia's the team to beat in the SEC. They're still top dog in the conference. And even though we don't know how good Georgia's going to be, replacing all those guys on offense and defense, it's going to be a new team. Maybe they take a step back. I mean, that's possible. They've got to get it done. They've got to find a way to get better. But until they're knocked off, they're still wearing the crown. They are still kings of the SEC. And no one wants it. No one wants Georgia to continue to stay on top. Greg Sankey doesn't want it. He wants Georgia off that pedestal, right? Everyone else, I think, would rather see anyone else be the new leader, the new top dog in the SEC. Everyone wants Georgia to fall off. And we'll see if it happens. It'll be an interesting season. Ole Miss, another team trying to fight for that crown. Really good players, right? Lane Kiffin is a good coach, but they've got to get over that hump, right? They have to put together a successful season from start to finish without dropping at least 2, sometimes 3 games that they shouldn't, right? They are, once again, getting after it in the transfer portal, bringing in a lot of players. They improved defensively by a mile last year, but they're replacing a quarterback too, so we'll see how that goes. But I still think there's a lot of optimism in Oxford right now. South Carolina, I don't think they're going to compete for an SEC title, but they've got good players returning as well. The quarterbacks returning, Lenore Sellers, who looked like, Michael Vick / Cam Newton against Clemson. That was unbelievable. But Dylan Stewart's coming back. I mean, they are going all in with NIL to, put a team out there that can compete with the big boys and possibly for an SEC championship. So there's a lot of optimism in Columbia, a lot of optimism, in College Station, with Texas A&M. They are hitting the portal hard. They brought in 2 really good receivers. They probably have more talent than I think people realize, but it's A&M. At some point, they will fall on their face a couple of times, at least a couple times in 2025. They're not that program. They're not ready for the big stage still. I think they're a good team, but I don't think they're going to compete for an SEC title next year. Florida, there's a lot of optimism around there too. I probably like Florida a little bit more than most heading into next season. They've got a really strong, dynamic quarterback. They've got good pieces. They've got good players defensively. I think they're recruiting better than people realize. I think everyone just looks at the team rankings and just that's it. They look at the rankings and they're behind this team, that team. They still brought in good players. I don't care where they are ranked as far as the team goes. They've got a lot of young, talented players. And I know for a fact, I've got some Florida buddies that are optimistic and think the program is on the rise. Are they going to knock off Georgia? Probably not. They're going to have an opportunity to in Jacksonville. But are they going to compete for an SEC championship? I don't think they're there yet. I still think there's several teams in front of them that are a little, farther along as far as being that team that can possibly take down Georgia. But listen, the Dogs are triggering everyone else because, again, no one wants to see Georgia do it again. They've won 2 out of the last 3 national championships. SEC championships, They've won 2 out of the last 4 national titles, 2 out of the last 3 SEC titles. The trophy room in Athens is crazy. Everywhere you look, there's a trophy here, a trophy there. They've got to expand the trophy room because there's just so much hardware. And, these opposing fans can't stand it. Texas, they thought they were bigger and badder than everyone last year. Played Georgia twice, lost to them both, right? They know where they stand in the SEC, and it's behind Georgia. Tennessee's the same way. Maybe they can make it halfway close this year. If they knock off the Dogs, that is a massive, massive step forward. And you'd have to say it's, probably up there with that win that they had against Alabama a couple years ago. That was massive for them in that program. If they beat Georgia in Neyland Stadium, it's going to be the exact same deal. They're going to rush the field, carry the goalpost out to the river, everything. I mean, Georgia still is just about everyone's Super Bowl in the conference. That's just what it is. And if they want things to change, you got to beat them, right? And take them down off that throne, because that's where they are right now. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. Can Georgia repeat as SEC champions? It's going to be tough, no doubt about it. I'm not saying they are. We've got a lot of months. We got a long offseason to talk about it all. But right now, Georgia sits on the top of the throne of the SEC. We'll see if someone can knock them off this year. Thanks for watching. Hope you learned something. I don't think there was anything new in this video. Just a conversation video, right? It's February. We're just talking. Thanks. Really appreciate it. And I'll see you over on Dawg Post.